Hello and welcome back to the final episode of my mini series on trauma. So, we've talked a lot about understanding and recognizing trauma. We've looked at the different kinds of trauma, and we've also looked at the effect that trauma can have on us if we leave it untreated. Today, in the final episode, we're really just looking at how we might start to treat it. And that can be quite scary, actually. It can be quite scary for people to actually confront their trauma, and sometimes people just aren't ready to do that. And that's okay. My hope for these podcasts is that it's sowed a seed for somebody. It may have got someone thinking, actually, yes, I do have some of that. And no, I don't want to carry on living like this. I want to get some help. I want to live a different way now. I want to set this down. And it may be some months between these podcasts going out and somebody taking the step to actually get that help. And that's okay too, because we're talking about something very deep and very painful, and it can take some time for people to actually begin to recognize that they are ready to begin a healing journey. That can be a big step. So, podcasts and self help books, in the first instance, are a really good place to start with your healing journey because you're not committed to anything. You haven't spent a vast amount of money. The podcasts are obviously normally free to listen to. Self-help books can be bought fairly cheaply through Kindle, and they're really good places to start if you don't want to outlay a lot of money. You're worried about whether you're actually ready and willing to commit to the cost of therapy. Maybe you can start just by listening to experts talking on podcasts, pick up a self-help book. My book is Critical Parenting Reframed, which is the book that goes hand in hand with this series and talks about where your trauma may have come from, talks about how you might recognize the patterns and how you might release yourself from those patterns. I do appreciate it can be very hard hitting to actually confront in black and white what you've gone through. And sometimes a self help book, for that reason, is the best way to go because you don't have to sit in a room with a therapist at this point. You can just look at the book, and if it becomes too much, you can put the book down, maybe go back to it in a few weeks when you're feeling a bit stronger. And once you've decided that you are ready to talk to somebody, there are then a range of options about who you're going to talk to. If you go onto my website, which is Open Skies Hypnotherapy, and you click on a tab called Articles, you will see a poem that I have written called The Therapist. And this poem is about how to choose a therapist and the importance of getting the right one. It's really important when you're dealing with trauma that you have a therapist who is experienced in that field. It's hugely damaging to pick somebody who has not got the correct experience because, number one, they may open a lot of things without realizing what they've opened. Number two, having opened those things, they may not know how to safely close them off to enable you to leave the session. And sometimes we can find therapists doing quite a lot of harm because they don't have the necessary training for that particular area. So it's really important to find the correct therapist. I would advise that you always take a session where you go for a consultation and see whether you get on with the person because it's really important to have the correct relationship with your therapist. If you don't have a good bond, if you don't have a connection, you're not going to open up and tell them everything. And in turn, they're not going to be able to fully help you. So, thinking about the type of therapist, looking at the training they've had, looking at the kind of cases they normally treat. Are they the right fit for you? Is it someone you can get on with? Is it someone you feel comfortable to open up to? Different kinds of therapists, you might be looking on their website for their qualifications or their experience. My particular experience is in inner child work, and inner child work is fundamentally what most trauma is about, is healing the inner child because the inner child is broken. So making sure they've got the correct experience to do what they're saying they're doing. We've also got people who are coaching. So we have trauma informed coaches. You may find somebody called somatic healing, and they can heal the effect of trauma on the body if you're not looking for a therapist in the more traditional way. Somatic healing, trauma informed coaching, mentoring, people who are able to help you to become aware of what's going on. So there are lots of things apart from the more traditional therapy now. We've got a lot of different trauma informed coaches and things out there, who look at somatic work, which is working with the effect of trauma on your body and actually releasing some of that. So there's quite a wide range of options to look for. Um, you can type in any of those terms into Google and you'll be met with hundreds of entries for people specializing in these areas. So there are lots of ways to do it. And it's just really important, I think, to find the correct support. So we've covered a lot of ground in these podcasts. I have had some really good feedback on them. They have resonated with a number of people. I know particularly that some people have found them very hard hitting, and I know that some people have struggled with the content, particularly around addiction and childhood trauma. So please, if you are struggling with the content, I would urge you to reach out to somebody. It doesn't have to be me. This is not about me selling my business. This is about me making people aware that there are lots of people for you to reach out to. It could be me, it may be someone else, but don't suffer alone if they have hit you hard. There are options out there. If you can't afford therapy, and I understand a lot of people can't, you can reach out to, you've got the Samaritans, you've got Mind, you've got numbers that you can text. So if you look on the internet for, free text therapy services, here in Durham, where I'm based, we have a charity called the Listening Post. If you Google the Listening Post, they are a free text advice and support service for people in crisis. Please do not suffer alone. If these videos have left you feeling exposed, vulnerable, and you need support immediately, and you can't afford a private therapist, reach out to one of those numbers, reach out to the Samaritans, reach out to Mind, reach out to 111, phone your GP. Just don't suffer alone with it, because it is difficult. This is a hugely emotive subject, and it is not a subject that can be delivered in a very easy way sometimes because of the nature of what we're discussing. So lots of options, lots of things to do, lots of text numbers, lots of other options apart from private therapy. So it's really for you to find the one that fits with you the most. I will be back doing more podcasts on other topics in the near future, so stay tuned for those. But for now, this has been Options and Therapy, and this has been about the subject of trauma. I really hope you found it useful. If it sowed a seed for one person to acknowledge that they've got some trauma and to address it, then I have done my job. That's all I can do. That's all I've wanted to do, is to just sow the seed for people to start reaching out. So really hope it's helped, and I will leave that with you. Bye for now.